Welcome back to Echo Ridge. Today, it's gonna be all about power. The power of the dupe. What dupe? Well, I'll let you continue that one on your own. And unfortunately, there's a little bit of a gap from our last episode to the recording of this one because I am a giant meep and did not hit record about 30 minutes ago. Luckily, I didn't get too far in the episode, but as a quick recap, you can see that I've started boxing in the base with wood tiles. Now, this isn't to box in the base for any sort of thermal reasons, it's just so that we can force the duplicants to go in and out at one point. As I was supposed to do at the end of last episode was build these Atmo suits, well, we now have them up and going along with our exosuit forge. But what I had to start with to get this change going is a massive change to our power system. To start off with, we've put in a major power spine. Well, we're still in the process of putting in that major power spine. In fact, I probably need to disable this because the duplicants can't quite use the suits considering nothing has power. But we had to go to an auxiliary system of using the wood burners for the simple reason that we're getting ready to run out of ethanol. Now, it's not so bad. Our seals are providing enough ethanol that we're about to start doing the run over. We're at 4,400 kilos now. Once it gets over to 5 tons, some of that excess is going to head off to the petroleum generators over here. But the ethanol is doing a great job supplying all of our plum squash plants to keep our mammoths happy, which keeps the reed fiber and the massive mammoth patties flowing. But the reason why we're doing all this work up here is because, well, we need steel, refined metal, and some plastic, which means we need this sort of temporary, of course it's temporary, industrial area. That way we can come all the way down here. We have 3 of these geovents here at the bottom of the map, and I want to tap into each one. Today's episode will probably be more experiment type because I want to get this system started, get some steam turbines strapped onto this thing so we don't have to worry about burning wood for our fuel. Because yes, our wood burners are not going to be as efficient, not even close, as our petroleum generators. For those of you that said, why don't you just put these into a power plant and use the NG's tune-up? Well, we will eventually. But right now, we only have iron and iron ore, and I want to save as much as that as possible for steel production. Now, once we tap into this copper volcano here, and the aluminum volcano here, well, then we will start using power plants. But I'm hoping by then it's not even going to matter, because if we do this correctly, we'll be able to get all of the power for the colony using geothermal. Now, we do have the petroleum generators no longer split apart, and they're connected to this smart battery using automation. Ooh, there's more iron. And they are set on 9060. The backups here are set on 9040. Now, I need to get all, or at least some of the wood loaded up over here. We'll put this on a 8 for a minute until they get it filled up, and then I'll put it on a 4. The auto sweepers are in position to be able to automatically load the wood, so we're not going to be crushing ourselves with duplicate labor. And now it won't really matter when we run out of ethanol. Now, for the record, we have 100 tons worth of wood at this moment, but that supply is going to dwindle very quickly. If you remember in the early game, we were relying on wood burners. Well, they ate all of our wood supply then. So imagine what they're going to do to it now, considering that we are using a lot more power. The other issue with this whole area is going to be the heat. It's not going to take too long for this area to heat up pretty well, considering the wood burners, as we did calculations earlier in the series, actually produce more heat per watt than even petroleum generators. Not to mention, I also need to put in a polymer press. That way we can start making plastic. And the polymer press not only produces heat, but it produces steam. It's like the gift that keeps on giving. So I need to put a simple cooling solution in place here. And I would say we could just use the brine, but we've already gotten to the point where the brine's too warm. We're up to about 7 degrees after we had to build a lot of iron. So I'm thinking this area here is just going to be our sort of open air industrial sector, and will need to be cooled, which means it's time for the wonderful steam turbine and a thermo aqua tuner. Let me also clear out some space here. Yeah, this will look good here. Our first pod of the episode has resulted in what's looking to be a pretty good Devon. Supplying operating means they're going to be a great mechatronics engineer. The science is pretty good. Yeah, we're not going to actually have them in science, but it will help them level up a little bit more. And their only negative is their kitchen menace, which we're not going to have them cook anyways. So they're just enjoying their food a little bit more. Welcome to Chill Hill, duplicate number 12, Clarky. Now, unfortunately, Clarky is super slow, and I don't think it'd be smart to let Clarky outside. So we're gonna have a sort of default system that doesn't allow anybody out, but will enable everybody else, except for Clarky. That way, by default, duplicates who are printed will not be able to get out. They'll have to do all the things on the inside. At least until they get their athletics up a little bit, otherwise the juice is not worth the squeeze. And there's plenty of stuff they could be doing around here. Where do you think you're going? Okay, Clarky, you're lucky. Oh, you need a warm coat too, don't you? There's Clarky's warm coat. They'll need a place to sleep, and they already have a place to eat. I suppose I'm gonna have to move this ice liquefier eventually. I guess there's no reason why we can't put it in here. Actually, I can put it in the research area. That's where we're using the water. And then I'll be able to make this into a new barracks for duplicants 13 through 16. And it looks like the great transition over to the wood power is about to happen. We are almost out of ethanol. So here comes a lot of carbon dioxide and a lot of heat. Luckily, we've started the process on our cooling system. Now, my plan is to use a double aqua tuner system, because I'm going to be asking a lot of this cooling system. Because not only is it going to be responsible for keeping the industrial area nice and chilly, but it'll also be a backup in case this area gets warm, and I'm going to have its coolant doing some inline metal refinery work. More on that in a little bit. But we have finished our steam turbines. Unfortunately, we need plastic and a lot more refined metal. So let's go back to the iron. Let me get another 2.5 tons. And since the polymer press is going to be creating steam, although not for long because it is cold here, so the idea is that all the steam would just freeze into ice. All right, this is minus 25 degrees, so we're just going to put it up here. Here's our wonderful polymer press. Here's our nectar supply, which we're sitting at 15 tons. Let me actually redo this now. And why I didn't do this in the first place, who knows, but you know how I do. So the first bit will go in. Then it'll come out and go in, then out and go in, and then out towards the polymer press. And then we'll separate them here. Eventually all that will drain. And then our nice and chilled nectar can make its way over here. Jump over whatever this line is. What are you? Oh, the ethanol return. And then go straight in. Now the question is, how do I want to automate the production? Because I don't want so much plastic. So maybe once again we use an auto sweeper into a smart storage bin. Ooh, we have a nice new smart storage bin. This is a smart looking smart storage. So we're not going to build it out of mercury. And did I build this? Nope, it's iron. Good. And then all I have to do is set this to a level, send it through a NOT gate, just like that. So anytime we're up to 2.5 tons of plastic, the smart looking smart storage bin will send out a green signal, the NOT gate will flip it, and then turn the polymer press off. Now, where am I going to get the power for this? You're at 1440. That doesn't seem smart. I suppose this is only 240. It'll be fine. Now, I know in my example I said 2.5 tons, but in this case, I really don't want to go overboard with the plastic until we get the cooling loop in. And right now, all we need plastic for is a couple of steam turbines. So I'm going to start off with, say, 400 kilos. And I'll say plastic, which we haven't invented yet, so the smart storage bin can't find it. So let's just hook this up and see how it goes. Oop, I need a bridge. What else is new? And we'll also need our gas output, because remember, it does get rid of the carbon dioxide. Well, lucky for us, we have a nice little pipe right here. And here we go with plastic production. Nectar in at minus 24 degrees. Whole lot of heat. And huzzah, we have our first piece of plastic. Now that we've discovered it, I can select it. And once we have 400 kilos, this polymer press will automatically turn off. Notice that we have a little bit of ice sitting here. It's at minus 12.5 degrees. So as long as we can keep this area cool, we don't have to deal with the heat or the steam. Clarky, Chris, you can't tell me there's not stuff to do around here. They're both idling, which kind of tells me it's time for a dupe gym. If there's nothing to do inside and they have nothing to do outside, or if they can't go outside, why don't we just put in a nice gym? I'll put it right down here on the bottom level. That way their carbon dioxide they're producing goes directly out of the base. We'll say just a couple right here. Use some good old-fashioned tune strand wire. Yes. And then some nice looking lights. Yes, this will work out just fine. Now, I know a lot of people like to put their gyms inside of rooms and then control access to the room. Well, we don't need to do that in our setup. And the reason why is because the duplicants that are stuck inside, the new dupes, can only work in here. Well, I would rather them work in here than just run on a wheel all day, as it saves tasks for duplicants that do need to work out here. But there is another small issue with that. Once a dupe starts running on this, they're not going to stop until it's their idle time. So what we do is put a little bit of automation in it. We'll put a timer sensor. I'll start it right here, and then I'll send it right through each of the wheels. And now that the wheels are complete, I can take each one of them, turn them on a priority of 1, so it's literally the last thing duplicants will do, and the purpose of the timer is to send a red signal once every, say, 60 seconds. That means if the duplicants run on the wheel for 60 seconds, they're then going to get thrown off. And so if there is another task around here, they'll then go do it, instead of just running on the wheel the entire time. Otherwise, the duplicants will just sit here and run and run and run until it's their potty time, because their errand here is never going to end because they're keeping these lights on. But here in 1 second, I might actually reduce this down to 30 seconds. But just to give you the quick example, as soon as the timer hits this little red mark, the duplicants get jumped off, and notice Chris found another task more important to do. Gave up is still trying to decide. There's a nice thumbs up. Yay, and a wave. Don't you have anything better to do? Yeah, we're going to reduce this down to, say, 30 seconds, and then I'm going to go find the duplicants something to do. To start with, we're going to add a couple more manual generators, and I'm going to clean this place up. That way, when they are running, the decor is a little bit better. In keeping with the wood theme, I'm also going to add some nice wood blocks here. And then we're going to continue our work out here because it does look like we are about full. We're at 390 kilos worth of plastic. So I can start on our steam turbine setup. Notice we have enough room for 2 steam turbines. And that's because I'm going to be putting 2 thermal aqua tuners in here. But before I can do that, I actually need to research them. Where did you go, little buggers? Here we are. And they're going to take quite a bit of steel, so it's time to get working on steel. So I'm just going to put this on forever, which is really going to heat this pool up. That's why this pool system is not going to be viable for very much longer. And I suppose it's time to start with liquids, and I cannot remember for the life of me which one's heavier, brine or polluted water. I think it's brine because it has such a high salt content. So we're going to take our heavier liquid, enable auto bottle, and get one nice layer of brine down here. I also wanted to give a quick update. It looks like we are getting a little bit of ethanol coming, some of the excess, although it's not going to be enough to feed the petroleum generators on a regular level, but at least it's something. And while we're working on our steel production, it's time to clear out some of this area. Now this is a whole lot of carbon dioxide. I'm probably going to have to vacuum this out. Luckily we have plastic, so we don't care too much. The first thing we have to do is reconnect the heat pump, which means, unfortunately, we need to deliver 1,200 kilos worth of steel. So I need to make enough for 3 aqua tuners, apparently. And we're still mopping up mercury. Now, right now, we're creating steel, and you can see this brine is at 66 degrees, and it's going in at about 0. If we wanted a better tell, we could just highlight over the heat thumbnail, and it says it's going to raise the heat by 117 kilojoules. Or, in the case of brine, 68.8 degrees. Now, brine has a specific heat capacity of 3.4. So my theory is, if we're using nectar as a coolant, it's not going to raise it as much. Because once again, we're trying something new and stupid. And I suppose I can also start by clearing out some area. Now, a steam turbine is 5 tiles wide. So if we want to connect 5 steam turbines, we need a width of 25 plus 2 for the sides of the building, for a total of 27. I don't especially want to start messing around with all of this hot obsidian or impact all of this abyssalite because, well, it gets much too warm in there. So I think what we might do is go 13 to one side, and we'll put our marker there, and then 14 to this side, something like this. That'll give us a total of the 27. So that means we need to core all of this out. Maybe we should actually make it a little higher, because this will be a pain to cook around. I suppose it won't be too bad, although it's going to look a little awkward. I'm not going to be able to live with this like this, am I? Nope, we're just going to dig through it. It's not going to be a big deal. The dupes are in suits. Yes, it's a little warm, but we'll do something like this. At least now it looks somewhat even. And it might be handy for us to be able to get in and out of here during this whole process until we finalize the design. So I think I actually am going to add a liquid lock. So we're going to dig through here and maybe go down like this. Yeah, this should be okay for now. I'll give you an update in forever when we finally finish all that steel production. Why is there something wrong with the toilets? Duplicants, these are more important. They're on an errand of 6. We just received the message that the geothermal heat pump is ready, which means we've dropped off the 1,200 kilos worth of steel. Now, an important note in here is it tells you that we can use the building to pump liquids in. It heats them up. That is the idea behind a heat pump, but it also emits various byproducts. But more importantly for our use case is we have 3 inputs. Now, when the DLC first came out, I made an attempt, although a more haphazard and sloppy attempt, to unblock this geovent. This time, it's not going to be as sloppy because we learned a lot of lessons. But to start off with, we're only going to be using one of these inputs. And as we know, one pipe can hold 10 kilos worth of liquid. Hence the reason we decided on 5 steam turbines. Because each steam turbine exhausts 2 kilos worth of liquid. We're also spending a lot of time going down here and back up, so I think it's time to put in a couple of fire poles, and we can use cinnabar for this. I think this looks fine right here. We'll go on the left side. In the meantime, I'm doing a couple little side projects. I moved the rock crusher over here. That way the duplicants don't have to run as far. Did I copy the settings though? There we go. And we are starting to see some of that heat being generated. We're already up to about 7 degrees here. And eventually it would start getting through these wood tiles and impacting us over here. I'm not too worried about it because the wood tiles do provide some insulation, so we'll see how that goes. We did get our first layer of brine in, which means now it's time for polluted water. An interesting pod came up, and I was debating on this max. Not only are they tidying, building, start with some bonus athletics, they're also hard digging. Unfortunately, they start with noodle arms. Now, noodle arms is not the biggest of deals, especially considering they're offset with some tidying. And once you put the dupe into some extra carry, it completely offsets the strength. But we're at 12 dupes. I'm thinking we're going to go to 16, maybe 20 in the future, so we can start being a little pickier. And to make matters worse, for that max, the cinnabar ore is 2 tons of metal in a planetoid that we don't have a lot right now, so we're going to grab it. All right, status check on our open air industrial thing. Our thermal aqua tuner bath is complete. I've always loved how this looks. And it is confirmed the brine is heavier than the polluted water. So it goes brine, salt water, polluted water, and then regular water. And we have plenty in here to be able to make sure that we have enough steam to keep the thermal aqua tuners cool because they're going to be running quite a bit. We're still a little bit away. We need another 200 kilos before we can get the second thermal aqua tuner. But once that's done, then I can start the massive project of building the loop. I'm also going to need a lot more of this iron. So I'm going to queue up, let's say, another 5 tons. I've been really debating just opening up this copper volcano, but as cold as it is here, this volcano will definitely start pushing the temperatures outward. And considering our oxygen supply is right here, I don't want to heat all the oxygen up for it then to rotate around our base and heat everything else up. As it is, I really need to get moving on that cooling loop. We have the relative temperature set at -14, mostly because that's the drop dead for the pike apple bushes and our plum squashes. And once those get stifled, well, the whole pyramid comes falling down. The bonbon trees as well can only go to -15. So I might want to take this up to -15 instead. I wish you could be a little bit more precise with this. So we're going to go -16. And as you can see, it's already pretty warm. I'm going to turn this metal refinery up to a priority of 6. I'm not exactly sure what we're waiting on. We have all the refined carbon and lime we need, so it shouldn't take too much longer for us to get what we want. Down here, we are about ready. I can get rid of some of these ladders and do some mops and some sweeps. We'll just take everything out that we can. And the first thing we need to do is liquid lock. Well, one great thing about the new DLC is how much easier liquid locks, at least when we've unlocked temperature shift plates. Because now we can make temperature shift plates out of mercury. We'll take 2 temperature shift plates, and this should fill this liquid lock perfectly. And as a reminder, as long as it's above -38, this mercury is going to melt immediately. Additionally, we're not going to have to worry about it flashing until it hits 356 degrees. Which I'm hoping this place doesn't. How did you get stuck in there, Pip? Naz is finishing up the second temperature shift plate, and whammo blammo, we now have a completed liquid lock. Isn't that just amazing? Now granted, this is not a double-sided liquid lock, so it will be transferring thermals to the outside here, but we're gonna have a thermal aqua tuner keeping this whole area cool anyways, which reminds me, I'm gonna need another thermal aqua tuner. But we have to do that in order to keep the steam turbines cool. I'm also making room for the steam turbines because they need to go right here, so I can't have the ladders right there. We've just finished enough steel for the second thermal aqua tuner, so it's going to go in right there. And then we're going to do the standard. I still have a couple of things I need to figure out with this, but for the most part, this is going to be your typical 2 aqua tuners in series sort of thing. We're going to have a liquid pipe thermal sensor at the beginning of each aqua tuner, and that way the flow of coolant will be chilled by 14 degrees independently between the 2 aqua tuners. Now, it's only going to be 1 line of coolant in there, but because I'm having the coolant go through the metal refinery, plus I'm going to be asking it to cool a whole lot of stuff, I thought it smart to have 2 of them in line. Now, right now, we only have 1,300 kilos of refined iron. Man, it'd be really nice just to uncork this copper volcano really quick. Nope, we're gonna make do with what we have. I suppose one of the things it's taking its time on is the fact that it needs to fill up on coolant. But as the standard, we're gonna be coming in through here and then out through here. We'll use some insulated pipes going through it, up, and then over, and then straight in through this one to evaluate if the coolant is cold enough. I'm also going to make sure these steam turbines only activate when we need power, which means we will need a thermosensor in here to make sure it doesn't get too hot, and then we'll have an automation wire going up like that. Oh, this is going to be very nice. Now for this ridiculousness. Once again, we're going to be using igneous rock, and I want to put 2 metal refineries down, but I want to make sure they both can be reached by a auto sweeper. So I'll put the auto sweeper, say, right here. And we'll have 1 metal refinery here. Make sure it can hit. Yes, it can. Once again, the center tile here is the point of interest, which is the tile the auto sweeper needs to be able to get to. Ooh, there's some extra iron. And then the same thing over here. The middle needs to be lined up right here. And that way, we can load all of our raw materials right up here in the middle. And the auto sweeper will be able to pick everything up and drop it off. Which makes me wonder, should I actually put the kiln right here? Yes, this is the way. I'm about ready to start building a lot more steam turbines, plus we're going to need some high pressure gas vents, so I'm going to increase this max to 1 ton of plastic, which will instantly enable the polymer press, which we are once again chock full on the nectar. Now we're going to need power for the thermal aqua tuners. Oy, and we're going to need more power for the metal refineries since we have 2 of them now. So I can hook 1 up like this, and then I'll throw, say, everything over here on another one. So why don't I remove this and go up like that? Now I just need yet another. Oh, we got one right here. Whammo blammo, that'll be good. That's another circuit, and I'm still going to need one for way down here. No, I decided I'm not going to need one because we are going to have the entire power spine down there, which means I need to get it moving too, don't I? We'll put a heavy watt joint plate right here, and then just start sending it down. That'll need a bridge. Oh, let me do it over 1 tile, say right here. Here we go. This is much better. We're still going to have to do some weird hooking around some environment things, but this will work out just fine. The decor, on the other hand, will not be working out just fine. We're going to have to work on that in the future as well. Of course, decor in here is not looking too bad, but they're not going to be spending most of their time in here unless you're a rancher or a farmer. And then we're going to need more power transformers, and that'll be for the conductive wire for these 2 guys. Oy vey, I'm going to need more iron already. We're running into some more problems during this construction. All these wood burners can't even keep up with the metal refinery and everything else that we need power for. You can see that all of them are running. Why aren't you running? Insufficient wood. We've burnt through 20 tons of wood already. Oh my goodness, we've burnt through a lot more than 20 tons. We're down to 45 tons, people. This is not a drill. Well, I can't do anything about the power issues. We're just waiting for duplicants to come refill the wood here. Once that's done, we'll just slowly but steadily get to that point. Maybe I need to add a bunch of dupe wheels. Help! We need more power, Captain! When I sat down to record this episode, I never expected it to go over 60 minutes. And as my years of YouTube analytics tells me, 60 minutes is just too long for a single episode of ONI. So I'm gonna have to split this one into two. You've just finished watching part 1, but don't worry, I'll be releasing part 2 within 2 days. I hope you understand, and as just a teaser, here's what you're gonna be looking forward to. So until next time, much love, happy gaming, and I'll talk to you soon.